In the quiet, tradition-bound village of Kawaza, there lived a renowned member of the King's Council of Elders, a man known as Elder Kato. He was a figure of wisdom and respect. Whenever he walked through the village with confidence, nodding at the villagers, they greeted him with the highest regard as he went for council meetings, carrying himself with authority. However, behind Kato's calm and authoritative demeanor, he carried a heavy secret, a secret that could destroy the trust the villagers placed in him. For years, Kato had been involved in a forbidden affair with Naledi, a beautiful young widow in the village who lost her husband barely 2 months ago. They had been in a secret relationship even while her husband was alive. Though Elder Kato was married to his devoted wife Mama Sanyu, his relationship with Naledi was passionate, but also heavy with guilt. In that village, a widow was allowed to remarry only after her husband had been buried for a year. Both Kato and Naledi are very much aware of the consequences of what they were doing. But the relationship was so deep, it could not be broken. Naledi, the young maiden, often wondered how long they could keep their secret hidden. The elder's attention, pampering and showers of gifts over the years had overwhelmed her sense of reasoning. But most times she could not help but express her fears. "Kato, how long can we keep this up?" Naledi whispered one evening as they met in the dim light of her hut. "What if the village finds out?" "We must be careful, Naledi. No one can ever know." "In a year's time we will be free to get married," Kato replied, his voice steady but his mind filled with unease. The elder knew the repercussions of such a shameful act. His wife would never forgive him, neither would the council of elders and the village. He put the uneasy thoughts aside as he wrapped his arms around Naledi. That was the only place he wanted to be, in her arms. Kato quickly sneaked out of Naledi's hut when he heard her neighbor's voice. This was how they met almost every night for the past 3 years, even while Naledi's husband was alive and went away on hunting trips. "Naledi," the neighbor's voice rang. "Who were you speaking with?" she asked out of concern. "No one," Naledi answered shortly. "I thought I saw someone," the neighbor insisted. "I'm fine," Naledi replied anxiously, looking towards the direction Kato had sneaked off. As Kato crept through the shadows, he smiled to himself, recalling his visit in Naledi's warm hut and how well he had been keeping it hidden. But in his haste, he didn't notice the large puddle that had formed after the evening's rains. His foot splashed into the water, and before he could react, his other foot slipped, sending him falling forward. Splash! Kato landed flat in the middle of the puddle with a loud, undignified thud. His garment was soaked in an instant. Mud splattered on his face as he flailed around, struggling to get up. The more he tried to rise, the more he slipped, arms waving as if he were caught in a wrestling match with the puddle. Finally, he managed to stand, drenched and defeated. But just as he straightened his back and glanced around, hoping no one had seen him, a distant rooster let out a mocking crow. He froze, listening intently to make sure no villagers had been awakened by his fall. His heart raced as he quickly scurried off into the shadows, his once dignified air now completely washed away in the puddle. As their affair continued, a new man suddenly came to the village. His name was Sefu, a handsome, charismatic young man who had recently returned from the city. His arrival turned heads, especially among the women, but Sefu had eyes only for Naledi. He began to pursue her, charmed by her beauty and captivated by her independence. However, Sefu had no idea that Naledi was already involved with the most influential village elder. It was a top secret indeed. "Naledi, you're the most beautiful woman in the village. I've come back for you," Sefu said with a smile, his eyes gleaming with admiration. Naledi felt confused. She fell for Sefu at first sight with his youthful exuberance charming her, but she couldn't ignore her secret with Kato. "Sefu, I don't know if this is a good idea," she replied, nervously avoiding his gaze. Sefu was irresistible. Naledi, almost losing her mind, confided in her friend Ruth. "Ruth, what do you think of Sefu, the new guy in town? she asked one evening in Ruth's house. He seems okay, Ruth replied. The type that is too perfect to be real. Why do you ask? Naledi bowed her head nervously. He wouldn't leave me alone. He's even prepared to wait for me for 1 year after my widowhood rite. You're so lucky. Getting such a handsome young man not quite long after losing your husband. Such opportunities are rare. I would consider it if I were you. You may never have another again. It's an opportunity for a fresh start. Ruth replied with a tint of envy in her voice. Naledi found her friend's advice confusing. Elder Kato had really been taking care of her, but with his present age, she may not stay long with him before she becomes a widow again. Ruth, of course, did not know about her affair with the elder. Naledi felt sorry for Kato, and all he had been risking to be with her. But whenever she thought about Sefu, the promising man, the future looks radiant. She could picture herself having lots of children for him, which she couldn't have for her former husband. She could picture Sefu energetically carrying the children on his broad shoulder and playing with them. But Kato's elderly, concerned face marred her sweet dreams. She burst into tears, wishing she had met Sefu 3 years ago, or before she even married at all. Meanwhile, Kato, noticing Sefu's growing interest in Naledi, became increasingly jealous. He couldn't risk exposing their relationship, but he also couldn't stand the thought of Sefu winning Naledi's affection. He was filled with sorrow and confusion. Was this how he would lose his beloved Naledi to a younger man? He confronted Naledi secretly on a stormy evening, the clouds threatening a heavy rainstorm. "What do you think you're doing with Sefu?" he asked angrily. "Kato, it's about to rain. Please, let's talk about this another day." Naledi tried to avoid the question. "Ha ha, ha ha, ha ha ha," the elder laughed harshly. "You must either think I'm blind or stupid. Is this the game you want to play now? Take all I've been doing for you for granted and leave my heart empty?" "Nothing of such." Naledi defended herself reluctantly. "Sefu is just a nice person that needs connection back to his roots, and I help him one way or the other." "Well, that must stop right now." Kato barked. "You are mine and will remain so forever. Do not make the mistake of being foolish over a mere boy that has no means of taking care of you like I do." The elder disappeared into the safety of the bushes as a spark of lightning flew across the dark sky. Naledi shivered and went into her hut. However, the more the elder saw Sefu, the more his suspicions grew concerning him and Naledi. One day, an idea came into his mind. Kato began to spread rumors about Sefu in the village, questioning his trustworthiness after his time in the city. He told several people that Sefu was a questionable character and possibly got his livelihood by dubious means. He whispered to the villagers that Sefu had changed and that he was no longer one of them. "I can't let him take Naledi from me," Kato thought bitterly. "I'll make sure the village turns against him." Sefu heard all these rumors and accosted the elder on his way to his farm one sunny day. "You call yourself an elder?" Sefu thundered as he approached Kato, who was walking alone on the path to the farm. Sefu's eyes blazed with anger as he stepped in front of Kato, blocking his way. "Kato, I've had enough of your games." His voice trembled with fury. "Why are you spreading lies about me? Why are you turning the village against me? Why are you so interested in turning Naledi against me?" Kato paused, keeping his voice calm but guarded. "Watch your tone, boy. You're speaking to an elder." "An elder?" Sefu laughed bitterly, stepping closer. "You hide behind that title, but I see you for what you are. You're jealous. Jealous because Naledi chose me. Are you interested in her, a woman old enough to be your last child?" Kato stood still, narrowing his eyes. "Choose you? You think so highly of yourself. You're just a boy who thinks he can waltz back into this village and have everything handed to him." Sefu raised his voice with his fists clenched. "What gives you the right to poison the minds of our people against me? You think you can control everything. Naledi, the village, the elders. You're nothing but a coward, Kato, a coward hiding behind your lies. Tell me, why are you interested in Naledi? Why? Kato's face hardens, but a flash of guilt crosses his eyes. You know nothing, Sefu. You are just a child. You don't understand the burden of leadership. I've done more for this village than your parents ever will. You left for the city and now you think you can just come back and claim what's not yours? All I'm doing is for the peace of the village. Naledi was never yours to begin with, Sefu shouted, losing control. You've been hiding in the shadows, whispering lies while I've been honest with her. You've spread your venom because you can't stand that she's with me. Kato, now angry, steps closer, his voice low but dangerous, his cutlass held tightly in his clenched hand. He was trembling inside, hoping Sefu had not found out about his affair with Naledi. You think this is about Naledi? She's confused, Sefu. She just lost her husband. Kato replied, It is my duty as an elder to protect all vulnerable women in this village and ensure they don't fall into the hands of those that will take advantage of them like you. You have no idea what's going on. You wouldn't even be in this mess if you stayed where you belong, in the city, away from our village life. It is about Naledi, Sefu's voice cracks with emotion. You've been filling her head with fear, making her doubt everything, and now the whole village looks at me with suspicion. Because of you. What did I ever do to you? For a moment, Kato hesitates, guilt flickering in his eyes. He knew he had to tread carefully on this matter, but he quickly regains his composure. You've done nothing, except threaten what I've built. I won't let someone like you ruin this village. Your place here was never secure, and now the people know it. No, Kato, Sefu replied as he steps closer, his face inches from Kato's. It's you who isn't secure. Your lies are crumbling, and soon the whole village will see you for the fraud you are. Kato, though visibly shaken, tried to maintain his authority and gnarled. Watch yourself, Sefu. You don't know who you're playing with. Oh, I know exactly who I'm playing with. And trust me, Kato, this isn't over, not by a long shot, Sefu said with determination. He storms off, leaving Kato standing there, shaken but too proud to admit his fear. The tension between them crackles in the air, a storm brewing on the horizon. Naledi, caught between the two men, found herself in an impossible situation. The pressure weighed heavily on her too, but things took an unexpected turn when she discovered she was pregnant. The realization sent a wave of panic through her. She didn't know who the father was. What am I going to do? Naledi cried while speaking to herself. I don't even know if the child is Kato's or Sefu's. If Elder Kato noticed she was pregnant without her informing him, he could suspect that Sefu was responsible and plot to kill him out of jealousy. If she told the Elder Kato she was pregnant for him, it was the end of their secret. The whole village would be ablaze. You have to tell Sefu the truth, her conscience whispered. He deserves to know. Sefu could help her, despite the fact that she deceived him by encouraging a relationship when she was actively involved in an affair with Kato. She imagined Sefu taking her to the city away from all this mess, starting a new life with her. They were in love. This should work out, she consoled herself. A month later, with great hesitation, after she was afraid of losing her mind, and the village would soon start noticing her pregnant state, Naledi finally told Sefu about her secret affair with Elder Kato, her pregnancy, and her uncertainty about the child's father. She hoped that Sefu would understand and take her to the city because of the irresistible connection between them. Sefu was devastated. You were with him? With Kato all these while? How could you betray me like this? He shouted, his heart breaking as the truth came to light. Furious and hurt, Sefu couldn't keep the secret any longer. In a fit of anger, he confronted Elder Kato in front of the entire village during a communal meeting. Kato, you betrayed the village and me. You've been with Naledi behind our backs. She is pregnant, Sefu shouted, his voice echoing across the village square. The villagers, shocked by Sefu's accusations, stared at Kato, waiting for his response. Kato stood frozen in place, his secret now exposed to everyone. Mama Sanyu watched in disbelief as her husband's reputation crumbled before her eyes. The village square was buzzing with shock as Sefu's voice rang out, loud and clear, revealing Kato's secret affair with Naledi. The villagers gasped, eyes darting to Elder Kato, whose face turned pale as he tried to hold his composure. Before anyone could speak, a sudden movement broke the silence. Mama Sanyu, known for her no-nonsense attitude, stormed through the crowd, a large wooden plank in her hand. Her eyes blazed with fury as she marched straight toward Kato, who barely had time to react. Thwack! The plank made solid contact with the side of Kato's head, his grey hair standing out like a startled bird. He stumbled back, clutching his head, eyes wide with shock. Mama Sanyu screamed, "So all this time, you were busy chasing after young girls, eh, Kato?" Her voice was sharp, filled with righteous anger. "I knew there was something off about you, but this is beyond shameful." Kato, still rubbing his head and trying to regain his dignity, mumbled, "Sanyu, please, I can explain. Explain." "Explain what? You should explain to this plank," Mama Sanyu screamed, raising the plank again. Kato took several quick steps backward. His hand rose up in surrender as the villagers erupted in laughter, and someone seized the plank from Mama Sanyu's hand. The village, once peaceful and united, descended into chaos. Some people wanted the elder cast out of the village immediately. Some wanted Naledi stoned, as she came upon the scene looking fearful. Elder Kato was stripped of his position as leader, and his once respected status turned to ashes. His wife wept bitterly at his hidden betrayal of so many years. Shamed and humiliated, Kato retreated from the village, avoiding the gaze of those he had once led, his clothes torn to pieces in the chaos. Sefu too withdrew from Naledi, unable to forgive her betrayal. "I can't look at you the same way anymore," Sefu told her coldly. "We're done." He went back quietly to the city a few weeks later. Naledi was left to face the consequences alone. Shunned by both Kato and Sefu, and whispered about by the villagers, she became an outcast. But the story wasn't over yet. The villagers decided to be merciful because of her pregnant state and left Naledi to deliver safely in her sister's home before her fate was decided. Months later, she gave birth to a baby boy. As she gazed at her newborn, she noticed a birthmark on his tiny hand, a mark that was identical to one Kato's father had. The truth was undeniable. The child was Kato's. "So this is how it ends," Naledi murmured to herself, staring at the baby's hand. "But it doesn't matter now. I will raise him on my own." Determined to start fresh, Naledi decided to leave the village with her child before the villagers decided a terrible fate for her. She had to sell all her property she was gifted with by the elder that made her life comfortable. Now left with nothing, she made her way one moonlit, quiet night to an unknown future. She knew she couldn't escape the past, but she refused to let it define her future. She didn't regret telling Sefu the truth. If she did not, but decided to lie that he was the father, Sefu would be raising the elder's child. This would have made the elder furious that she was pregnant for another man. He would probably kill Sefu out of jealousy. Things would definitely have been worse. "I have taken the right step," she consoled herself. "I can't let an innocent man die because of my deceitfulness." As she walked away from the village carrying her baby in her arms, she felt a newfound strength rising within her. She was no longer the woman caught between two men. She was a mother, ready to forge a new path for herself and her son. The village of Kawaza, once proud and united, was left fractured by betrayal. If the well-respected elder could break their age-long rules, then the entire village had been covered by deceit. Elder Kato had lost everything, as his former house was pulled down by the villagers. He lived alone in an isolated hut on the outskirts of the village. It was the safest place after the villagers decided to send him away from among them. His wife, Mama Sanyu, could not bear the shame, and she left the village with her grandchildren to live with a relative in a distant town. Naledi had chosen a life far from the shadows of the past. But even as life moved on, the scars of that fateful love triangle would remain, a reminder of how deeply secrets can wound. Surprisingly, Sefu, now settled back in the city, couldn't take his mind off Naledi and her pregnancy. What if the child was mine? He asked himself a year after he left the village. Would Sefu go back to look for Naledi and the young child? Would Elder Kato remember her in his incarcerated state? Will Naledi want any of these men in her life anymore? This could be the beginning of another story. Subscribe to Savanna Storyteller for more updates.